Hi everyone. I had absolutely not intended to record another quick video today, but this game played yesterday in the Lorca Open between Grandmasters Narciso and Bernadskiy was just so beautiful. I couldn't help but analyze and share this wonderful game. This is absolutely one of the best games of 2019, but being played so late in the year, it may easily be missed by a lot of players. So let's quickly get into the action here. I'm going to skip through the opening and middle game phases really quickly with just a few comments so we can focus on the dazzling attack that concludes the game. I'll mention briefly that c5 is actually an interesting move to me here. I'd not seen this kind of idea in a King's Indian defense before. It may be common and I just may not have seen it before. But after c5, it looks like you're trying to establish some dark square control, and Bernadskiy chooses not to take on c5 and instead just develops, and the resulting transformation is that you've exchanged the pawn on c4 for a weak pawn on d6, which is very interesting. Both players do actually get some different benefits in the center as a result of this exchange. Now black is going to push for c5 actually himself on move 11, and this is going to result in a weak pawn on d6 and probably a position that should be a little bit better for white. Not a lot, but a little bit better. But after moves like rook e1 here, and then bishop f1 and rook c1 and queen to b3, the advantage is shifting to black. These last four moves all seem to drift a little bit, and Stockfish is now no longer happy with the white position that seemed pretty good a little bit ago. Basically, none of these moves really put pressure on any clear black targets or seem to have a very clear plan in mind. At this point, Bernadskiy pushes forward with pawn to h5, starting to play on the dark squares around the white king. And this move is actually pretty intimidating, but if you just play rook cd1, there's definitely no win here yet. After h5, though, Narciso does overreact a little bit and go ahead and pull his knight back to h1, presumably headed to f2 in just a moment. And this move allows Bernadskiy an amazing win. Bernadskiy, of course, spots his opportunity and here plays knight takes f3 check. Boom, what a brilliant move. Now, the point is actually that after g takes, you have a second knight sacrifice, knight takes e4. Basically, you're sacrificing two knights here to open up an attack here on that loose bishop on d4. If white tries taking on g7 here, then after queen g5 check, you're just winning. I'll mention bishop g2 and queen c5 check, a really nice swing over from the queen, and you have mate after king f1 and knight d2 checkmate. Obviously, knight g3 is also possible in this position, but you're going to take on g3, and the big thing is that you're going to be able to take on f3 in this position. And now, in addition to threatening mate right here, you also have rook e2 possibly, rook e1, and this is hanging as well. You're actually going up material with a huge attack, and so this is crushing as well. As a result, Narciso does go ahead and capture the knight on e4, and we do get bishop takes d4 check. Now, knight f2 to block, and queen h4 puts pressure here on that knight on f2. There's only a few ways that you can defend that knight. I'll mention rook e2 runs into queen g5 check, and there's a loose rook on c1, so that's an easy refutation. And if you try queen c2, it's a little bit more difficult. You have rook takes e4 here. But both knights are pinned really beautifully here. So if you capture on e4, then after bishop takes e4, you suddenly realize my queen's not really able to capture back because of queen takes on f2 and then queen g1 and checkmate. So that's going to end the game, and this attack after rook takes e4 is crushing. So after queen h4 here, rook c2 is tried, which makes the most sense. Now, you could win a little more slowly if you do rook c5 and then rook g5. That should be enough to bring home the full point, but Bernadskiy finds a much more incisive solution. He plays rook takes c3, sacrificing an exchange to remove the defender of e4. Basically, every move is just really beautiful here. Now, after rook takes c3, again, you can't move the rook because you're getting mated on g1, so you need to capture back with the pawn on c3. We now get queen g5 check. Now, if the king runs to h1, rook takes e4 is crushing. It is the only winning move in this position. But again, the knight is not really a defender of e4 because you have mates on g1. So after rook takes, bishop takes, it's just going to be checkmate on the next move. So queen g5 check, bishop g2 is played, and again, there's only one winning move, and it's rook takes e4. This keeps coming up here. So now you're threatening rook takes e1 and checkmate in one move. Of course, you're also threatening moves that discover a mate threat here on g2. So rook e2 just allows rook takes e2, for example, when you've got mate here on g2. And here, after rook takes e4, if you try to trade and run with the king, you're losing g2, then you're just going to be down too much material in this position here. Queen check, bishop takes f2. You're already up a ton of material as black, and you're even checkmating in this position. So after rook takes e4, Narciso does find the best defensive try, king to f1. This defends e1 and gets the king ready to run if g2 falls. Now, white is still up a rook in this position, so you must be precise. There is only one winning move, and Bernadskiy does play it. Queen takes g2, check. Amazing. This is the kind of move that every chess player just dreams about playing, a queen sacrifice leading to a brilliant king hunt when it's the only winning move in the position. Now king takes g2 is forced, and you get rook takes e1 with a huge discovered check right here. You don't have too many choices here. If you try to run with the king up the board, then here you have bishop e5 check, king h4, bishop f6 check, the king pulls back, and rook e3 check is really important. These rook checks on the third rank are devastating. So after rook e3 check, the king now only has f4, and rook f3 is a beautiful checkmate. We should get some arrows on the board to really paint this position. Everything is working in perfect harmony to checkmate this king. So after rook takes on e1 check here, we should also mention king h3, and then you do have rook e3 check without allowing the king to f4, which is a little more resilient. The king's forced to h4, and you have mate in 1, bishop f6, a really important checkmate in these lines, and such a beautiful checkmate. So rook takes e1, knight e4 is played. White is up so much material, it certainly makes sense to try to give back the knight to create some escape squares, but bishop takes e4 doesn't really allow the king to run very far. After king h3, again, you have this checkmate here where the rook checks on the third rank, and you get into f6. And if the king tries to run to g3 in this position, then you have rook to g1 check. And if the king goes to f4, you have rook g4 checkmate. Beautiful, beautiful checkmate. I've never seen any checkmate like this. Again, I'm going to do a little painting to show this kind of, like, I don't know, fishhook style attack right here. Beautiful checkmate. And if rook g1, if you try king h4, you can go for a series of bishop checks and checkmate. Another beautiful checkmate. I love anytime the bishops cooperate. And if you try in this position to block with the rook, it's a little more clever, because after rook takes g2, king h3, you don't have this check that you want to have because the rook is now hanging on g2. But a simple move like bishop e5 actually just leaves black material up. And of course, this is a mating threat right here as well. So the game is actually over after rook g1 check, and it is in this position that Narciso resigned. I love this game. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. If you like the game and want to see more brilliant chess games, then just click on the playlist that's sitting on top of the board over here. And as always, a like or a subscribe is thoroughly appreciated.